eBay sellers. Welcome to my November 2023 sales update video. And yes, this is a little later than usual. Most of you know that November kind of sucked for my family. So we had two deaths, and that just kind of turned everybody's world upside down for a while. So I am back on track now and catching up on some things. So we're going to get into the sales update. And since I didn't really have time to go treasure hunting much in November, instead of showing you items that I purchased and listed, I have a tutorial slash opinion about eBay rolling blackouts. So there's just a little lesson at the end. So we will get to that in just a minute. So we're going to start off with some items that I sold, what I paid for them, how long they took to sell, and my profit. And keep in mind that the duration is from the time I last touched the listing, whether it was the first time it was listed or if I went in and ended it and refreshed the listing. I like to track that to see how long it takes for things to sell. So we're going to start with this Missoni cardigan. This is from the 2011 Target collaboration with Missoni. These are still floating around out there. The iconic chevron zigzag pattern. I paid $4.75 for this, took an offer of $25. It sold in 41 days, and my profit was $17.46. This is a Kohl's Cares plush duck from the Eric Carle books. I paid 50 cents for him. He sold for full asking price of $19.97. It took 120 days, and my profit was $17.61. Okay, next up is this Nordstrom cashmere sweater. I paid $4.75 for this. It sold for $25. Took 45 days to sell. Profit was $17.69. This is a BMW acrylic beanie. We have the BMW plant here in Greenville, so I do find things occasionally with that BMW logo on it, and they always sell very well. I paid $1 for this. It sold for $20. Took 79 days. Profit was $17 even. Here is a Kirkland brand, which is Costco, Miracle Suit swimsuit. I paid $3.75 for this. It sold for $32.97. It only took 10 days. Profit was $24.93. And yes, swimwear sells all year. This sold in November. Here is a Revel Sky Crane helicopter model. I picked this up at an antique booth back over the summer when I was messing around with trying to source that way. I paid $20 for this, took an offer of $50. It took 90 days to sell. Profit was $25.07. And I will say that experiment of shopping antique booths was a good lesson. You can find things, but it just takes a really long time to go through all of those booths and find items that you can flip for a profit. So I really wasn't all that excited about sourcing that way because it just took a really long time. So estate sales, thrift stores, I feel that I can find things faster and more items each trip. So I have not been back to the antique booth, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. See if it could work for you. Okay, this is a wool beret lined with satin made in France. I paid $1 for this. Took an offer of $30. took 63 days to sell, and my profit was $27.22. Here's another tried and true item, plush. The brand is Animal Alley. This is a vintage item, and it was a yellow and white gingham check bear. I paid 50 cents for him. Sold for full asking price of $38.97. It took 112 days. Profit was $34.55. Here is a Yankee candle. I bought a whole bunch of these about a year ago on Facebook Marketplace. The lady was a collector and she was downsizing her collection, so I did pay $12 for this, but brand new, never burned. Sold for full asking of $44.97. Took 54 days from the time I restarted the listing. I did restart this one a few times, so profit was $36.80. Here is a Disney Nightmare Before Christmas Jack Skellington cardigan cocoon sweater. I paid $4.75. It sold for full asking of $54.97. It took 107 days. Profit was $42.21. And yes, this sold after Halloween. So eBay knows no seasons. If you have it, list it. If it's already listed and the holiday it's for has passed, leave it there. Things will sell any time of year. This is a vintage Susan Bristol cat embroidered sweater. I paid $1 for this. Sold for full asking of $49.97. It took 41 days. My profit was $45.52. And this one wins the prize for the most offers sent. It was in my send offer workflow probably every single day of those 41 days. And I thought, well, if there's this much interest, I'm going to just wait. Someone's going to pay full price for it. And they did. This is a vintage Toy Story comforter, and it's a twin size. I just have it folded in the photo to show both sides. So it had Buzz Lightyear on one side and Woody on the other. This was $7 at a thrift store. I priced it at $124.97 and it sold for full asking. It took 27 days to sell. My profit was $105.82. Okay, this next item is a combo sale. All of these action figures were separate listings. I found these at a church rummage sale over the summer. Paid $10 each for these, and someone sent offers on these four. So they all sold for $172, and I had ended them and restarted 11 days prior. So that strategy does work if you're not paying attention to older listings that are just sitting there. You might want to end them and refresh them. And I do it differently, I think, than most other sellers. I sort my listings by oldest. I don't end the ones that are going to end that day because I have the basic store, so I'm not going to be charged anything. I look at what's been there the longest that is not sold, and I feel like those are the listings that need my attention, not the ones that are ending today. So you might want to rethink that strategy if you have listings that have been sitting there a while. Usually the ones that I end and restart are 4 to 5 months old. So just refresh them, and this is proof that that strategy works. My profit on these four guys was $111.35. And the big sale in November was this Brighton handbag. It's called the Jagger handbag, and it was leather. I paid $25 for this at an estate sale. It sold for full asking of $250. It took 81 days to sell. Profit was $188.86. So not too shabby, even though my life was kind of a disaster in November. I'd already done the work and these items sold. I sold 29 items in November compared to 39 the previous month. I currently have 451 items in my store, which is down from 503 the previous month. As I mentioned, life got busy and I had to step away from my store for a bit, so I wasn't out there treasure hunting and listing. I was doing a lot of ending and restarting kind of stuff just to keep some activity going on my store. So you can always rebuild. My inventory cost for the items that sold was $184 compared to $191 the previous month. So I seem to stay around $200 as the inventory cost for items that sold. Not everything I bought, just the items that sold. Profit per item was $31 compared to the previous month, $25.93, so a little bit higher. Average duration, how long it took items to sell from the last time I touched the listing, 53 days compared to 42 days in October. Returns, I had 0. I had a couple of people open a return, but they did not follow through and send their item back. So when you get that a return has been started email notification, don't go into panic mode. Just step back and say, let's see if they actually return it, because a lot of times they don't. And I only had 25 new listings, but that's what I could handle that month. So, if you're in that situation and life gets crazy and you have to step away from your store, it's okay. We're all human and things happen. So now I want to get into the rolling blackouts topic. And like I said, I just didn't have the time to get out and treasure hunt. So I'm including this, which was a lesson from the premium library. And this is a hot topic for discussion. So I wanted to give you my 2 cents worth. The video was made in 2021, so you might see some dates on the slides, but the bottom line concept still holds true today and will hold true in the future. So it's still important information. So let's segue into that discussion now. Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to discuss the theory, concept, mystery, whatever you want to call it, eBay rolling blackouts. This is a theory that's floating around on the internet, and I do get questions about this. So after getting enough requests to do a video, here we are. So the inspiration came from an email I received last week, and the premium member said, I would like to hear what you have to say about rolling blackouts on eBay. Like UFOs, there is evidence of their existence, but is hard to prove. I can say that many times I feel like my listings are invisible. For days, I get no send offer in my seller hub. Also, only a few views and no sales. It is very discouraging. I also read about the huge influx of Chinese sellers, around 2,000 a month. And she didn't say where she heard about this, so I don't know if it was a reputable source that provided this information. I personally looked for this information and could not find it. So I'm not sure where this came from, but I will address that. And finally, she asked, what can a buyer like me with 530 listings do to overcome rolling blackouts? Okay, so let's unpack this, as they say. What is a rolling blackout? It's also been called throttling. It's basically a conspiracy theory that eBay intentionally hides listings for a period of time. The objective on eBay's end is to give all sellers a chance to receive sales by rotating which sellers' listings are at the top of search or even appear in search. In other words, the theory is that eBay is hiding some listings so that other listings can be seen and that sales are evenly distributed among all sellers. And this theory has existed among sellers since as far back as 2012. If you go on the eBay community boards and do a search for rolling blackouts or throttling, you will find many discussions about this topic and what sellers think is happening. And I have never found any statement from eBay, anything official that says, yes, we absolutely do this. It is a theory, keyword conspiracy theory, from sellers who think that eBay is doing this. So, first of all, we need to change our thinking about rolling blackouts because, like UFOs and Bigfoot and other mysteries, rolling blackouts cannot be proven. Everyone has sporadic sales. You talk to any seller, they are going to tell you that they have entire days or 2 or 3 days in a row with no sales. It just happens. But just to play the devil's advocate, let's just assume that rolling blackouts exist. If you aren't convinced that they don't exist by the end of this video and you still think they might, just rest assured that eBay is still a fantastic way to make money. Even if they are doing this behind our backs and don't admit it, it's still a win because you're still selling stuff online and making money. So try to think of it that way. But we can take back our power and figure out ways to work with rolling blackouts rather than feel like victims of a plot against us. You know, eBay's out to get me. So again, if you still think these exist after watching this video, then you just can change your thinking about how they might be hurting us and, just work with it. So the first thing I want to ask is, what is your goal on eBay? Rather than looking at how many sales a day you are not getting, for example, you have a day with 0 sales, look at the big picture. What is your goal? Why are you on eBay in the first place? Do you want a certain dollar amount each month or a certain number of sales each day? And the overwhelming majority of sellers want a profit dollar goal per month. We aren't in this to say, I sold 10 things today, I sold 20 things today. We're in this to make money to live the life we want to live. So that can come in many forms. And it may not come with sales every single day. It may come with sales over a period of time. So if your goal is profit dollars per month, you need to track that and compare the progress of your store over time. You're only comparing yourself to your past self. And that's why I advocate keeping your own records every month. What sells? What is your profit? And keep those records for years. Just have a folder on your desktop or Google Drive or wherever you keep your files, and just keep those so that when you have a terrible sales slump, let's say in the middle of July, you can go back to the previous years and compare and say, oh, wow, this happens every single year at this time. I just forgot, because numbers don't lie. And if you save those spreadsheets and records, you can identify patterns within your own business to compare current performance with. So it really doesn't matter if you have slow days if your goal is met over time. So it's kind of like, when the weatherman talks about how much rain we've had this month. Maybe you're not getting rain every single day. Maybe 3 days that month you had torrential rains and had 3 inches of rain, and that covered it for the month, and you're on track. So think of your eBay sales like rain. Some days it rains, some days it doesn't. Look at the end of the month at how much rain there was to see if you're on track for the average. So you want to track your views over time. And you can see if your listings are getting views by studying your traffic reports. And views mean that your listings are being seen. If you have 0 views for 3 days in a row, then there's a problem. But all of this is available to you in your Seller Hub, and you can look at traffic on every single day and see how much traffic overall your listings got. So you just need to go to your Seller Hub, to the Performance tab, and under that is a button that says Traffic. And you will be sent to a page that looks like this. And that's kind of scary. But what we want to look at is that middle section that says Page Views. And at the top of the page on the traffic reports are these date boxes. The default is 1 month back. So you can change that to whatever you want. I just left it at the default. So today is October 7th. So this is looking at my page views and sales and impressions from the last month and comparing that to the previous month. So that's what all the percentages mean that we're going to see in just a minute. But you can change these dates to whatever you want if you don't want to leave it at the default. So all you have to do is hover over the date you want in this chart. You just hover over one of these, and this box with all these numbers will pop up. And you can look at these numbers to confirm that you did have views on the days you had no sales. So let me show you a couple of examples using my reports. I had 0 sales on September 20th. That's one of the days I had no sales on. So you can see these gaps are days that there was no sales. Okay? But if we hover over that date, you can see that I did have views. So that shows Monday, September 20th. Total page views, and this is across all my listings, 272. Total quantity sold was 0. So my listings were out there. People were clicking on them and looking at them and probably thinking about them and maybe watching them and maybe comparing my prices to other prices, maybe putting something in their cart. Things are happening even though you didn't get a sale. That's what you're missing when you say, I didn't have any sales today. You're not factoring in all of the background stuff that's happening that you're not seeing. It's like when you're working on your computer. You have no idea of all the background tasks that are happening when you are, on your computer reading email. There's a lot going on that you're not seeing. So again, people are looking at your listing, they're reading your listing. They might be bookmarking it on their computer. They might be watching it. They might be putting it in their cart. Who knows? It could be a lot of things, and there's no way for us to know what all that activity is. All we get to see is there was a page view. That's the only information we have, but that is information. So you can contrast this by checking a day where you had a lot of sales and compare the number of views. So I had an outstanding day on October 2nd. I sold 6 items for a total of $455. That was one of my best days I can remember. And let's look at the data from that day. I had 174 views and sold 6 items. So if we compare those 2 days, you can see that the day I had so many sales, I had, what was that, 98 fewer views than the day I had nothing. So I got views on both days, but there really is no correlation to using page views to quantity sold. Let me repeat that. There is no correlation. You can have 1 view and 1 sale. You can have 500 views and no sales. So don't try to analyze this too far. Don't go into analysis paralysis trying to figure out all the math, because it's very random. There are so many unknowns. All we have is the data that eBay gives us, and here it's page views and quantity sold. All of those other numbers with the percentages are comparing the previous 30 days. So I'm not looking at that right now. But you can see that my impressions were almost the same. Now, what that means is that your item came up in search and was on the screen. It wasn't clicked on. Items that are clicked on, that's where you get a page view. Impressions means that it came up in search. So I'm good. I just had a bad day on September 20th and nobody bought anything, and who's to say why? Too many variables to figure that out. So fact or fiction, based on these eBay reports I just showed you that you can access at any time, I'm calling eBay rolling blackouts as fiction. I don't believe in them simply because this is just the way eBay works. Sometimes you get sales, sometimes you don't. Now, let me address this comment about huge influx of Chinese sellers. What are they selling? They're selling cheap, crappy stuff made in China. Are they a direct competitor of yours? Probably not. If you are selling used and vintage and collectibles, then these Chinese sellers have no effect on you. They are selling iPhone cases, earbuds, all the stuff that can be produced so cheaply in their country. They're not going to be selling vintage cashmere sweaters or vintage Charlie Brown collectibles or vintage Starbucks mugs. They're not going to be selling any of that because they're making their products to sell right now. So they're not going to be used in vintage. So this is an excellent case for just don't sell that stuff. Don't try to compete with the Chinese sellers. Don't do drop shipping. Don't do retail arbitrage with the same kind of stuff that the Chinese sellers are making. Stick to used and vintage, and you will be fine. This won't affect you at all. First of all, I don't believe there are rolling blackouts. That's just something that I believe sellers have invented as a way to blame eBay for them not getting sales on a particular day. That's where I stand on this. I have to look at the evidence, and the evidence says as long as you're getting views, then you're showing up in search, and there are no rolling blackouts. And a side note on that, rolling blackouts is a great topic for YouTube videos that create a lot of hype and get a lot of views. So that's another reason there's so much information about rolling blackouts, is because YouTubers hop on that topic and create hype and get a lot of views and maybe more subscribers. And it's all about their YouTube channel. It's not even about eBay. Okay, next point, eBay is cyclical. Every seller has slumps and days with no sales. If you listen to my podcasts, you will hear that over and over again. Sellers who have sold for over 20 years will tell you this. Yeah, that happens. It's just part of selling on eBay. There is no other answer. It's just that's the way it works. Keep records and compare performance at different times of the year. You can only compare your current performance with your past performance, not comparing your current performance with someone else's current performance, because there's so many variables that make eBay different for each person. How many listings you have, how long you've been selling, what are your DSRs, do you have any defects, what is your feedback percentage, are you doing free shipping, are you doing auction or fixed price? You get the idea. So you really can't compare yourself to other sellers. You can only compare yourself to your past self and see if you can identify patterns and trends for slower or better times of year. Diversify. This is a big one, and it's also a big controversy, but having sold since 2003 and selling different kinds of products the entire time, always trying new things, I feel like having too much of one product line is crippling, because when that category is slow, you have nothing else to fall back on. So if you're selling all clothing, you need to diversify and add some other products. Sell in many different categories. Always go wide and not deep on your product line. It's the same concept of not putting all your eggs in one basket. And again, this is a controversial topic. You ask different sellers, they're going to have different answers. But in my personal experience, it pays off to diversify. And then you want to do all the steps in the 8-point plan. That is in the premium library. I have a link to that below this video. Do all of the steps in order and you will see improvement. And finally, just keep moving forward and have faith in the system. Again, I refer to my podcasts where I've had many guests that have been selling on eBay over 10 years. And that's what they say. And that's also what I say, but there's power in numbers. So to hear more people say it is more believable. But it always comes back. Don't sit there and dwell on it that you haven't had a sale in 1 day or 2 days. When that happens, you need to be the squirrel gathering nuts. And I know a lot of you just want to pull out your BB gun and shoot this squirrel. Because down here in the South, most people don't like them. But that's a good analogy, is when your store isn't busy and you're not busy shipping, you need to be listing, you need to be getting more items to sell, working on everything in the background and stockpiling all of that so that people will have things to buy. And just don't dwell on the fact that your sales are slow, because that just makes it worse. Be in the energy flow of being productive and being positive and moving forward, and that will move you along. So I hope that has answered your question about the non-existent rolling blackouts. I am completely open to comments about this if you disagree, but many of you have asked for my opinion on this. So here it is. You asked for it, you got it, and we can put that to rest and get back to purchasing great items to sell and getting them listed and moving forward. Thanks for watching, and have a profitable and productive and fun day.